As AI is transforming music publishing and automating rights and management, optimizing royalty tracking, and enabling smarter song artist matching, this panel will explore how AI-driven tools are streamlining the publishing process while ensuring transparency and control. And the session is going to be moderated by Mandy Salem Aubrey from MSA Music Services.
Hello. Hi, it works. You can hear us. How are you? Did you have fun last night? I'm Mandy. Lovely panelists here today. Well, I'll ask them to introduce themselves in a minute. I do like to read the room. I can see some familiar faces here, which is really reassuring. Thank you for coming, those who know me and know us. Anyone are there any performing rights organizations here or CMOs? Oh, which one? Gamers here. That's a German one. Okay. Publishers? Music publishers? How many of you also have labels? Okay. Writers? Songwriters? And artists? And I bet there's some students here who want to learn from us. Hope so. No? They maybe know it all already. Okay. Well, thanks for coming. Let's start. I've worked in publishing for about, I've been in the industry for about 30 years, publishing for at least half of that time. So when I was asked to moderate this session, it was particularly interesting for me because this is the time when I think all the frustrations and all the things that I've always hoped might change could with AI. So this is really interesting for me. But let's start. Do you want to start, Henry? Say who you are and what you do and why you're here, maybe.
Oh, wow. So many questions. Fantastic.
Oh, anything you want.
All the things. My name is Henry Marsden. I run a company called Fix Music. We do what we say on the tin. We're a technology provider for music publishers and music publishing rights holders, like funds, but then we can also work with songwriters, anyone who has interest in music publishing, providing technology, data, tooling to help manage catalogues at scale. And obviously that includes nowadays utilising AI. I've worked in publishing for 10, 15 years. Before that, I was a session bass player, so creative background. I've run my own independent publishing companies and catalogues, one of which I've sold. I ran my own startup, raised capital for, which then took a catastrophic failure. We won't talk about that. And then I've also worked in a catalogue management business on some of the largest and most culturally relevant catalogues in the world with some phenomenal artists and writers and their teams.
Amazing. We're lucky to have you on the panel. Thank you.
So lucky to be here.
Yeah, good. Laura, hello.
How do I follow that?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, well, you can.
Yes. I've been working in music since I graduated university for about 20 years. I started in publishing. I did that for 5 years, and then I did a tour around the music industry and decided that I wanted to do publishing again. So 8 years ago, I started MSA Music. It's a small independent publishing company. I have 70 writers, a lot of them in rock. It's not exclusively a rock catalogue. But, and aside from that, I also do other things, like find money for people and do royalty accounting for labels and publishers, and can do other various consulting things. I have lots of hats too.
Thank you. Antonio?
Hello, I'm Antonio Di Porto, CEO and co-founder of Monetunes. I have a background in artist management. I worked with Bose, Kina, and a few other electronic arts in the past. In the recent years, I've specialized in tech, publishing, AI, and I've helped artists recover over 7 figures in lost or unclaimed royalties over the past few years. Those insights helped me launch Monetunes, which essentially is an hybrid between a music publishing administration platform and a traditional publisher, where artists can collect royalties, get sync placement opportunities, and connect with collaborators. We mainly use AI for three things, which is metadata cleanup, then spot conflicts early on before it's too late, and then also essentially track down lost royalties or unclaimed royalties. And yeah, so essentially implementing AI allows us to be sort of faster and more cost-effective in general as a platform, and that also allows us to offer our platform with no upfront fee, no subscription. You go there, register your music, and we only take a commission if we successfully find royalties for you. And yeah, then...
Yeah, thank you. So this panel is about AI and publishing. So we're not going to say what publishing is, you know, or the specifics, or go into the weeds of what publishing is and what it's not, because that's not what we're here for. And you know, what we're here is to talk about AI. So I'm really happy that Ben's here, because we need people like Ben that haven't worked specifically doing what we say we've done for 30 years or more, 20 years, sorry, I'm older than the rest. Like, I am so glad that finally people who have little experience of our industry are actually interested enough to come and try to help us, right? And that's where, Ben, you fit in.
Yeah,
Can you
exactly
talk about what interests you about publishing, and how you look on it as an outsider, perhaps?
Yeah, so my name is Ben Charlton. I am the founder of an organisation called Middle-8. We specifically consult with typically very technical companies, or companies trying to solve quite complex problems that drive more revenue to writers, artists, composers, the creative industry more collectively. And I think kind of the beauty of kind of, as Mandy said, I am not a publisher. I'm going to get things wrong, and I'm going to say the wrong thing. I have already been told off enough times by Laura for saying artist, not writer, and getting that one kind of wrong a few times. So please forgive me. But the passion for me comes from a deep-rooted kind of, as a father of kind of 3 young daughters, and someone that wants to protect this industry moving forwards. It's not about doing this because it should be owned by someone, or about doing this because it should be something, you know, it's something that I have the want to do to generate revenue from it. It's something that should be done because there is a need to protect, and to protect the creative side of this, and to ensure that there is a future for people to be able to do this as something, not just as a hobby or as a passion, but something that they can actually see as a career choice. And that's why utilising things like AI in, you know, the rights, royalties, and kind of matching spaces is a big thing for driving that revenue to the actual people that deserve to benefit from it.
You know, that I'm really glad about that. And I think also, if I look at some of the panels that I was on, maybe even as a panelist a couple of years ago, it was like, AI is so scary, AI is scary. But am I right that we're all welcoming AI in publishing? Do we welcome Ben at our table? I do, but like, do you welcome him, or what? Where do you generally sit on it? And just to get a feel for what hat we're wearing today. You open, Henry?
I'm so open. Ben, you're always welcome at my table.
That's very, very, very kind.
That's right. We can sort a date later. Yeah, no, I think you see a lot, especially as AI has come more to the fore in the media, etc. The first thing I saw in the publishing landscape was like, you know, scared, fear mentality. Oh my gosh, and not wrongfully so. Like, there is a lot of disruption that it'll bring. Obviously, generative AI, and what does that mean for creators? You know, if machines can also sort of do part of their job, and I understand that side, but my head is immediately like, well, where's the opportunity here? There's all this humongous amount of manual workload, repetition of work that the publishing industry at large on a global scale is doing, that AI could very, very, and I'm sure we'll get into the weeds in a minute, specifically help on and help reduce the inefficiencies that are naturally inherent with our current systems, particularly around data transfer, data matching. So I'm like, I think this is the best thing since sliced bread.
Me too. Laura?
I agree. I'm like, I mean, just recently I've got an assistant, but like for many years I've just been a one-man band, and it's been really difficult, like just drowning in admin. If you've got like the signing of like one band might be 5 writers that are 7 albums in, and you've got to go back and try and fix all the mess that comes with it, and it's just so difficult. And any tool I can have that can help me track down where the gaps are. I mean, I can do it, but it's just, and I can do it quickly, but I feel like there's something out there that's better. And then I can spend time doing more fun things like creative, like how do I get more syncs?
Well, you can grow your business maybe as well.
Yes, and also go
right?
find, yeah, definitely.
Well, why? Just because you can do all these menial, difficult tasks,
doesn't mean I want to, and I think
you don't have to do everything you're good at, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Yeah.
So I can spend more time, like just growing the business and having bandwidth to do other things.
Good, good. I mean, we don't all have to love AI here, right? There will be some things that we'll talk about later that we worry about, and you know, it is a partnership. I think Antonio, you love it too, because it's your
100%.
business as well. It's given you work as well. You know?
And I think it presents us with a great opportunity. Also, doubling down on what Henry said. Right now, as you all may very well know, the publishing industry is filled of manual, outdated processes that eventually also end up being expensive in a way. So what really excites me about AI is the fact that it can cut or remove those repetitive tasks so that the industry as a whole, writers, publishers, labels, can just focus on the creative side, on the relationship side of the business rather than on those repetitive tasks. So yeah, very excited and fully embracing it.
Good, good, good. So let's start by looking at some of those weeds. I mean, in order for publishing to flow, it starts with the registration. In the current world, perhaps this world might change. There's a panel later. Let's change that world. But in the current world, you have to register correctly. You can't do anything until a song is registered correctly, I believe, in terms of the collection for the rights holder, because the money needs to come back to the rights holder via whatever systems they have in place for collection. So perhaps one of you, any of you who can explain what is clunky about the registration process of a work currently that makes your teeth grind?
Looking to you, Laura.
It's not so bad if it's just a fresh work that you're starting from.
True.
So that's not too bad.
With one writer.
With one writer, yeah. When you've got three, then you're scratching your head over who might get the extra 0.4% at the end of the 33.34, things like that. But when you're taking it over from, when you've got one writer that maybe has written with other people and trying to navigate those shares and making sure you're not interrupting anything, and then it doesn't actually, you don't amend a registration, it creates a new registration, and then we have to get, you can end up with a number of registrations on the same songs, and then they need to be merged, and they don't always get merged. Nothing really works.
Do you think the human is causing the problem in the registration process in that world where there's, with a Virgin registration for the first time, I'm going to register the panel at Music Frontiers with us by all of us. Equal splits, 25. First time ever we do it perfectly. The money will flow. But what happens if it gets complicated? What happens if we were accidentally, by someone who was trying to do their best, if we were accidentally put as the previous panel that was about touring or something? It's not our panel. Those other 4 panelists should have got their money for that if they'd have written the song. This is a real problem, right? Humans are effing up the registration process I have to say, with the best of intentions not to do that, right? I come from the optimistic side. I think people are trying to do it right. So what is the opportunity to make it easier to get the registration process more streamlined and less complicated?
So I think that there's an inherent opportunity for AI to be able to be used to augment this process. I think that there is a clear and easy win there from and everything that's happened to date. And if you look at kind of the rights and the attribution piece, everything that's happened to date, obviously there are inconsistencies in the data that exists. I think that there is a way, and kind of, Antonio, I'm sure you can kind of talk to this kind of with a bit more credence as well, but there are ways to be able to polish, and that was exactly the phrase used, I think, but to be able to polish that data and to use AI to find those matches and to ensure that things are accurately tagged and kind of attributed at source. But I think that moving forwards, there has to be we've kind of all alluded to, there has to be a simpler way for this to be done with an automation, and then everything is registered en masse in a single way, rather than it being kind of, and I hate to use the phrase, but fat-fingered at source, which is something I do in my day-to-day. Everyone makes mistakes. A backspace key exists for a reason, right? We're going to make mistakes. We're human.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think there are, speaking by experience, for example, some of the most recurring issues that we have on Monetunes is when there are spelling errors, for example, from the writer themselves, or sometimes it happens that they submit a song for a composition for registration, but they already had another publishing administration platform representing the work, so it ends up being a conflict. Or we even had some bad actors trying to impersonate other artists and trying to steal their royalties, which happens all the time. And so with AI, in the first case, for example, with metadata cleanup, we can ensure that if there are spelling errors, then we can cross-reference it with global publishing databases to make sure if there's any mistake or spelling error, we can immediately flag it and it can get fixed in the backend. In the second scenario, where, for example, there is a registration that's already been published by another publisher or publishing administration platform, then it gets flagged right away, as we are able to cross-reference it across different publishing databases. So we can identify it before it gets to the situation.
Can you tell me how you do that? So, because I'm really a bit more old school, let's say. So what is the process of someone going to your platform? You're collecting the royalties. You're a royalty collection platform, correct? So someone like me is putting my song into the system, but what are you saying, that your system will automatically see whether that song has already been registered in any other society anywhere else before you send it to anywhere else yourself?
Yeah,
I
correct.
love that.
That's part of the process that happens in the back end before it gets sent to collection societies. So for every single registration, we have processes in place that do several checkings for different things. One of them is, first of all, checking spelling errors, or if the writer API and all those metadata is in place. Then we cross-reference it with publishing catalogs to see if the work with those metadata is already published. And then ultimately we also check if the writer has the rights to claim royalties for that work. Because obviously, again, we cross-reference it with digital platforms like Spotify, Apple Music. So we also have AI-powered KYC. So we know the
your
identity.
customer.
Know your customer. So
not
we know
KFC.
That sounds good.
We know essentially who are the people submitting works and whether they have the rights to claim royalties for those compositions, and then it gets sent out to collection societies.
But if I can look under the hood, what is going on there? What is it that you have created with AI to do that job? Like not how you did it literally, like X, Y, Z. What is it like? Because and are you offering this to other publishers, like who are not being administered by your platform as a service?
Currently, it's only limited to writers and labels that register songs on our platform. But essentially, the way we do it is a mixture of LLM models, closed models, open models, and essentially we built our own workflows. And essentially, what we can do is, for example, if there's anyone technical here, usually you can simply cross-reference databases by importing data with APIs or scraping databases, but sometimes that's not enough, because if it's not an exact match, then the system just goes through or doesn't flag it. While with AI, what you're able to do is get a confidence score. So you're able to see, for example, the system can flag if it's 85% confident that this is the right writer, or if there's an error. And then obviously we have humans that follow up with every single flag.
But sorry, like what about the? And if I ask stupid questions, because I'm not Miss Techie here, and I don't mean, it just genuinely interests me. On what has your model been trained in terms of, like, where does it have a cite? Like, where can it see? Like, which databases? How did you, like, is it only as good as the information of the databases in various territories that have that data to go in? So it's not, it needs more. And yeah, sorry.
I think that this is a problem across pretty much every industry. This is not limited to publishing. When it comes to AI, that the output is only ever as good as the input, and it is garbage in, garbage out. That's always going to be the case. I think that where, you know, and kind of to sort of hopefully sort of back up what Antonio said, but from a slightly less technical perspective, that genuinely, you know, it's exactly the right kind of model and approach to be able to take to that sort of thing. And it, you know, it is, yeah, I mean, the data quality is always going to be the biggest factor in how accurate and how that score is going to be able to increase. If we are able to feed as much information, it doesn't have to learn from it. It's not as if it's a rights infringement piece kind of we're worried about here. And there are organizations that utilize or have the access to copyright and IP databases that are used to work out what has been infringed or where infringements lie. That, again, is a massive data source for this kind of thing, where you can then use that to again, increase. The more data we put into this thing, the less kind of manual those processes are from a baseline perspective, the more speed and accuracy we can derive from those systems. Again, as Antonio said, the key is not trying to replace humans in this chain. It is about augmenting that, and it's about putting our start point from a check perspective 80-90% down the road with a gate at the end that is human-led.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because AI is speeding everything up, but you're still advocating for the most traditional first lesson I learned in publishing by someone who's amazing at administration. She said, do it once, do it right. Because once it goes into the abyss wrong, and John in the audience will totally know this, John, true love there, it's fudged up. He'll also know the person who told me, but I'll tell you later. And it will end up in this parallel universe. You can have the original splits of the song written by Mihai and me here, or by you and me, you know, and then I say, oh, actually, it's the three of us wrote it. I can write to, in the old school days, write to every society and say, oh, I want to replace the work of the one with Mihai and me with the one of the three of us. Nah. There is some territory where it's never, ever going to be rectified, and the money will always go to the wrong place. Laura, you can really identify with this because you're very hands-on with what you do. What's resonated so far with you about this? Are you about to ask him for an API or something into? Yeah.
Can we do business? The other thing is, like, I get money that isn't mine.
Yeah, what do you do with the money that's not yours?
Just have to put it
in escrow, yeah. I hope.
It's in a tiny little black box that we don't talk about.
Okay.
I can't do anything with it. I tried to give it back to MCPS. They went, thanks for telling us. And then that's it. I've still got it. They haven't taken it away. They can't do anything with it. So it's like it happens the other way around as well. It's like, so how much of my money is actually going to other publishers as well?
Definitely. Definitely.
They shouldn't be going. So it's really tricky, and it starts off as pennies, but publishing is a pennies business. And if you look after, I was always told by my first boss that if you look after the pennies, and the pounds look after themselves. And it's trying to have all those pennies together to gather the pounds up.
I think of it differently. That if you're making 100,000, let's hope, let's wish. If you're making 100,000 in publishing royalties, I am sure you should be making at least 200,000. And it always really frustrated me as well that when someone was looking to do some business with the catalogue, they'll say, give me your 100 highest earners. But you could, there could be titles that aren't earning because the system's messed up, right? So it's not working.
I think as well, speaking to that point, and very logically, most of the industry works around, well, you know, most of the value is in the head, you know, the top 10%, the top 5% even. Like, it's insanely driven by high-performing works, so most of the attention goes on those works. So when you come to any sort of revenue recovery platform or any sort of work on, okay, let's do a little catalogue audit, let's look back at where money might be missing, everyone focuses on that top 5%, but that often then means the top 5% are relatively well registered, relatively well looked after, and actually most of the missing value, misattributed value, unallocated value is in the long tail. The problem with the long tail is that per work, per writer, per share, the value is significantly lower, so it's not economical to go and chase, 3p at a time, 5p at a time, 7p at a time, unless you have technology that can then do that scalably, or, to Ben's point, help a human look at it in a scalable fashion.
Do you think the technology is therefore agnostic and unbiased? It can just handle everyone, give everyone everyone's copyright an equal start in its life in the abyss?
I think based on the data that's put into the system in the first place, as long as if everyone's data is inputted correctly at source or is automated and ingested properly, then there is no bias in these systems. They are designed to be. There is no, that's the top value that you can tell it to be, but inherently by proxy it only does what it's, a computer will only do what you tell it to. That might slightly change soon. But ultimately, if you want it to treat your whole catalogue, your whole kind of plethora of writers in the same way, then that's all it'll do.
Yeah, I think AI really empowers in this sense, because a really great use case that I love about it is, for example, pattern recognition, where it doesn't matter if you just who is the top earners or the bottom earners. If there are any mismatches in the statement compared to your registrations, they come up whether they are the top earners or they haven't earned anything. For example, it happened that there was a composition that had tens of millions of streams, but in the royalty statement there were no direct revenues connected to it. So that empowered us to follow up with collection societies and look into it, double check and fix if there were possible mismatches. So yeah, I think a great use case is the pattern and the recognition in patterns and for recurring things that keep coming up. So that whether that's a big or small song.
But what about then, let's just talk about the volume of registration. So let's say there's all the songs coming out on Spotify or whatever platform. It's now quite easy, let's say, to process the data of thousands and thousands of registrations. I mean, the question then is more of a human one. Where's the good in that? Sorry, I'm being, where's the good of having thousands and thousands and thousands of registrations that can be very quickly processed? Let's say, some of the performing rights organizations are less able to keep up, or the CMOs, they're more sophisticated. So you can argue that, some are still very hands-on, maybe even using paper forms. I mean, it could still be like that in parts of the world. So it's not so fair in that way. But what we're looking at is, and it's happened with companies like Songtrust, where I worked, all these DIY music publishers. Perhaps even, Henry, you can talk about the MLC later, where everyone in America is able to get that. They're really good. We'll talk about them. But the fact of the matter is, Laura's 5,000, 10,000 catalogue at the most is a beautifully, beautifully organized, great catalogue where it has meaning. A Songtrust, with all due respect to them, or a Centric catalogue, or even a publishing catalogue for some of the distributors I work with, how much of it is, I don't say worth publishing, but is it worth publishing? I know it's a difficult question.
As someone that's not a publisher, I'm probably not going to profess to be able to answer that question. So, Laura, I'm going to let you.
I think there is an issue with quantity and not quality. I don't know how much of that. That brings into conversations about taking up space in the royalty pool as well. But in terms of registrations, I could write a crap song, register it, and somebody else is doing all the admin, and then it's a waste of time. It's not doing anything.
There's a statement in the film The Incredibles, and it's when everyone's a superhero, no one is. And it's this thought that when everyone's a writer, or when everyone's an artist, when everyone's a creator, no one is. And there is a distribution issue with kind of the royalty chain at the moment, that the money is so disparately spread because there's so many hundreds of thousands of tracks that are being uploaded or created every day. There is a generative issue element to that, but there's also just a broad, because technology is so accessible and being a creator is such an accessible thing now, regardless of what medium you use to create. There is do we then say, well, actually, no, you have to pass a certain bar to be considered a creator and to release music or to register music? Or is it that actually this is an industry that is for all, and therefore we should say, well, not everything's worth registering?
Interesting,
yes. I think that I tend to disagree there in a way, because I really believe that every song deserves to be published, whether it's big or small or good or bad, because perhaps it's not going to stream 10,000, 10 million streams on digital platforms, but it could go on, it could be chosen for a single opportunity, or it could be played live, or it could be played on the radio, or maybe someone makes a meme on TikTok and then it becomes a sensation on digital platforms. So in that case, you wish you'd have proactively registered your songs before, rather than having to catch up later after this happened.
Well, but we're talking again in the old world. In the old world, you'd have to say, someone would say, how long will it take till I get my royalties? And we'd say, it takes at least 8 to 12 months. Sometimes I used to say 4 to 6, but I felt a bit bad about that, because it wasn't really 4 to 6 months. But we now actually, and we will talk about royalties more specifically from the publisher's side, but let's say from the people who pay the royalties, it's getting much closer to distribution. Distribution royalties, I think, monthly. It doesn't take necessarily 6 months to get the money, correct?
No, I do a monthly run as well.
Yeah, but you have to be paid by your sources in time, and the PRS has just said that the Performing Rights Society in the UK, they are now paying digital royalties monthly, right, John? They've started that. So this is amazing. When I was at Song Trust, again, I think we always got the money from the digital sources first, and then YouTube was also a good one. And I have to say, though, from the performing rights organisations, I saw the money later. So, time is something that can be sped up with AI.
Only on certain types of income, though. This is what we're talking about. Like, especially in a live space, it's really difficult because there are so many things you're relying on. Somebody submitting a set list, and then you're relying on the venue paying their bill, because the Performing Rights Society aren't going to pay out until they've received the money. So, like, for a festival headline slot, you might not get paid for a year. So that sort of thing, I don't know how you can't really. There's
Ben,
too many humans involved.
This is a terrible, silly problem. Like, why are we doing it like this?
It does frustrate me, and I think that there's and I understand that there are two sides to this. One is the line I always kind of come up with is that we have to draw a line in the sand, that there is an existing kind of, let's call it, legacy issue with kind of everything that's been released, tracked, tagged, the rights attribution piece that's happened to date. Moving forwards, I still think that shouldn't be an issue that we should have to deal with. I think that everyone should be paid immediately based on kind of blockchain smart contract technology that exists right now that will allow for immediate payouts based on whether that is a generative AI prompt, which can be done, or then a live performance, like detection of that playlist should be done automatically. The technology exists. It's now an adoption thing, and that's a completely separate scenario and a completely separate problem set to solve.
Yeah, do you want to say?
Yeah, I also think this will be a really interesting insight to us, to our friends at Gamma also, because I believe that collection societies have been paid quarterly so far, also because it takes time to reconcile all the data and all the statements that they in turn receive from all the different sources. So with AI, obviously, you can reconcile faster, pay out faster, and then, again, it will be interesting to see how they are also implementing these kind of tools, because it will be really helpful to speed things up there as well.
But, playing devil's advocate here, if you rush things, mistakes can happen, correct?
Mistakes can happen, but again, it's garbage in, garbage out. And this is where treating two things semi in isolation of each other and looking at kind of what's happened retrospectively and what happens forwards should be at least something that's considered by the industry.
Yeah, following up to that, we are not speeding it up, but mistakes still happen anyways. So,
would you rather be slow and have mistakes or fast and have mistakes?
Yeah. Tell me about the MLC. What's going on? And why did you focus on the MLC? Maybe you can also, for the sake of people here who may not be really familiar with what it is, and could you just explain also the evolution of why it came about? And
Yes, I can. MLC, Mechanical Licensing Collective in the US, created by an act of Congress 2018 or so, I want to say. So it's like a brand new collective management organization, and then with a technological focus. and also by the act of law that created it, they had to make their database publicly available and effectively free, like, sort of nominal fee, which, if you've worked in publishing, trying to get access, you spend your life checking, are the songs that I have in my database the same as in the database of the Performing Rights Society that I'm signed to, let alone every other Performing Rights Society on a global scale. Now we live in a global consumption digital ecosystem. So you're spending your life trying to get access to these data sets to see, do they have my works registered with my percentage, as I would expect, and matched to the recordings as well, so that when they get usage from a Spotify, they can pass it through correctly to me and I can pass it on to writers. So the interesting thing about the MLC is, effectively, for the first time and at scale, here is a publicly available data set for the world's biggest music market that includes all the works, all the shares, collection shares, and all the recordings, matches. Yes, there's some murkiness.
Is it only
in
when
there.
it's registered, or does it already include all that information before something is registered?
So from a works perspective, it includes only works that have been registered. But from a recordings perspective, it includes every recording that has been reported to the MLC from a platform, which is a good enough proxy for, now we live in a digital, ecosystem globally, every recording that's available on a digital platform in the world ever. Like, it's 210 million recordings.
How do they report the recording to the MLC in the first place, or is it just something that just happens? Do you have to do something to get it there?
Do I?
So in order to have the recording there without the registration at the MLC, you're saying it's got access to all the actual original recordings. How do they get there? Who does it?
So that'll be the usage reporting that Spotify, Amazon, Tidal,
great.
Deezer
So it
will
has
send.
to be there. Great.
Yeah, so they'll say, this ISRC, this identifier in our system got 3 million streams on the family plan in the US from January to March, and they'll send that file to MLC.
So to be specific, the MLC is only pertaining to the USA, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, good. So
Yeah.
tell me more. Why did you get so interested in this? And
Because suddenly there's this fantastic data set that's an effective proxy for global registrations on the work side, and then with matches to recordings that you can see, and then they also report on if there's revenue that they have received and have not yet been able to attribute to a work. So I can go in and say, I've got all these publishers' catalogues, I've got all these recordings that I know they have an interest in, let's just cross-reference that against MLC. You, my client, are missing $200,000. You, my client, are missing $450,000. I will go collect that for you.
So utilising that data then, surely it gives you an opportunity to be able to market your kind of artists, writers, creators in a much more efficient way to areas that you have clear kind of listener bases or kind of ingestion basis within. Does it segment the data into kind of very kind of narrow sets, or is it just we had 3 million across the US on this?
Yeah, just across the US. But I mean, this highlights the wider issue is that data availability, even if it was available, can you technically access it, APIs and stuff, is not necessarily all that prevalent across the entire publishing landscape. Like, historically, as a publisher, you're waiting for a royalty statement that's come from a sub-publisher or a society who got data delivered to them, depending on the platform, however many
By the time they get it, it's out of date, so you can't
exactly,
do anything
yeah.
with it.
Like,
Okay.
great, here's the streams that I had 18 months ago, but that's useless for like A&Ring or whatever. But as data becomes more available and accessible, you can do more things with it. And I think this whole conversation, there's these two sort of bits. There's the before the line in the sand, there's what we currently have, and how can we apply any technical, innovation, including AI, to the systems, the processes that we currently have to use, and then how can we replace pieces of infrastructure with new data, new technology, new interfaces between companies for data transfer that will then lift the entire ecosystem and help us get paid, which is obviously really means helping writers get paid. And to your point on, should everything be published? Like, I bet Paul McCartney, when he wrote his first song, it was probably terrible when someone was like, I shouldn't publish this. Or think about how many people get turned down by publishers initially and then get picked up by someone else and, oh my gosh, it's Bruno Mars, that's amazing. But I'm like, if someone's music gets used anywhere, in any context on the planet, that person who wrote that song should be paid some payment for that, and we just need to get it to them efficiently and with as little hassle and with as little cut as possible. Otherwise, creativity will die out, and no one wants that.
One of the kind of use cases that was always in the back of my head was if you think about Grand Theft Auto, the game, and when you get into a car in Grand Theft Auto, the radio starts. And those songs that are in that radio aren't necessarily the chart-topping kind of hits that we hear every day. They are pieces of music that someone's written somewhere in history, and they've just been picked up for this sync heist. That is the most revenue-generating game of all time, and if they weren't registered correctly in the first place, chances are someone's not getting paid. I would imagine they probably are now, but again, it's the same sort of ethos that everything should be registered. And I appreciate it's kind of it does take away from the pool, and kind of we need to make sure that everyone has a fair crack at the whip. But I think that genuinely comes from everything getting done, regardless.
Yeah, I think from what you're saying and from my experience working more recently for my clients with the MLC, I view it as, maybe some people here have knowledge and they beg to differ, but I find it a success story. And do you think it's because it was devised for this time? You know, it was you said 2018, the MLC, I know that whenever I have issues with issues, I use their chat and I get them solved. Like, imagine how many clients they have, and I'm not that special, and I get my answers almost within, I don't know, instantly. I just ask the question and someone answers it. That, the customer service, this is also today's world that we're used to. We want to get things done, and they're in our minds then, and that is the time to resolve things. In the olden days, we probably still do, have to wait a month to get an answer, and the answer just says, could you please send me your name in capital letters, please? And some of them used to post that question, and then I'd have to go back, It's like...
But it's the clarity and availability of data that not just kind of you want, but also those organizations want. And I think the technology, we had this conversation the other day, Laura, that it's about, it's not just about the technology industry running away with this and trying to do things now. It's about making sure that they work with the music industry in a more broad sense, because we need to ensure that is something that is kind of done together. It's a partnership and a collaboration. It's not something that technology can run away with and go, hey, look, we've done this, now you need to catch up. It should be something that's done in a collaboration piece.
Yeah.
I think there's been a sort of wariness around data sharing and like, oh my goodness, if I make my data as a publisher or as a society available, people will see how messy it is. And as publishing and also society world has become more competitive, you can move rights. Think, oh my god, we don't want people to see. We'll sort of keep it all closed, or it's our competitive advantage. We have better matching than they do. I promise, we're definitely doing a better job than they are. But actually, we live in this interconnected ecosystem, and being transparent, sharing, just saying and MLC is a fantastic example of this. A lot of the data is terrible. Matches are horrendous, so obviously very, very poor string matching applied.
How did they get there terribly? What was their route to being so terrible, do you think? Was it just people panicking and saying, get it in the MLC, or is it too easy,
So I think they bought their data was inherited from Harry Fox Agency. So it's that they've sort of inherited a load of legacy data. But again, in a sense, it doesn't necessarily matter, because at least they've said, here it is, warts and all. But then if it's transparent, and if you as a user have a route to be able to make a change, then communitively everyone can see oh great, that's the issue, I'll change it. So
this
it improves.
Goes with the startup stuff that I've been learning, that basically, what is it, start and then ask for permission later? Or I'm not saying that's the good thing to do if you're going to do something naughty, right? Or maybe. But the thing is, if you spend forever trying to get it right, you might do nothing. So in your case, you're saying that the issue was, look, it's not good now, but we have to start somewhere. Let's get it in there. Let's just go with it, and then let's work on cleaning up. But that is a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah, I mean,
pollution is a problem.
It's like equivalating to Wikipedia. The number of errors per 1,000 words or per page in Wikipedia is less than Encyclopedia Britannica, because it's community source, it's open source. People can see it, people can correct it. And yes, there are things, there's fraud, there's other things that do come with that. It's not 100% utopia. But I think open, transparent data policies, scalable, will help everyone, the entire, a rising tide floats all boats.
Yeah, okay, good. So given the time, I think I'm going to go towards the area that I know interests many of you, which is sync and the more creative side of the business. And I know that this is a particular interest to many people here. And of course, registration ironically, the back office, the boring side, is, I think, one of the main draws of a sync agent to user work. Laura, you can speak to that. Like, maybe you could start with just talking about how is the efficiency of the data of who wrote the song a pull for a sync, perhaps?
It's key, because basically if the music supervisor doesn't know who controls the work, they won't use it. Because there's all sorts of legal ramifications after that if a song gets used and they didn't have permission. So if anything's sitting on copyright control or there's an unknown writer or anything like that, it just won't be used. They'll move on to the next one. So it's key to have all your ducks in a row. And as an example, I had a fortnight sync, and my writer was okay. They got in touch with me and we sorted out my half of it. And then they went, "Oh, do you know who the label and the other writer are?" Because they didn't know. And so basically, just because my writer was published, that song got used. So I was able to give them all the information. So if they can't, they will. Some people will also make an effort to find out if they really want to use the song. And there is a way to license the song if they can find all the players, if they've got time to do that. But for like US TV, things like that, they don't have time. They just a blanket licensing for BBC. They're just going to move on to another song. Because there isn't, believe it or not, one perfect song for one perfect slot. There's a lot of music in it as well. So, and there'll be several others that they'll be able to use instead.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, given that all the metadata and everything is sorted out and clean and working, another really interesting aspect of AI and sync and the sync world in general is also with when it comes down to AI tagging and analysis. For example, every time that, again, speaking of our use case and our experience, every time that we have a song added to our catalog, it goes through a process of tagging and analysis, and we're able to have so many different touch points and filters. We can immediately, we have systems and models that can tell the genre, the mood, the instruments used in that song, whether it has male vocal, female vocal, whether there are hundreds of different touch points, and then that allows us, whenever we get a brief from a sync agency, a music supervisor, or recently we had a sync placement with Valorant, a video game. And so we had a certain brief that it had to be a dance song, uplifting for that specific thing. And so essentially we were able to go back to our catalog and filter it specifically to the brief that they gave us. But even more than that, we can literally right now already prompt in our internal system, and we get a match that is related to the prompt that we gave it. And another use case is we can give it a Spotify link, and then the system gives us the most similar matches to that specific songs, because sometimes it happens that a music supervisor shares some references from songs that they would like the synced song to sound like. And so we're able to provide very accurate matches when we do go and pitch songs. One thing that it cannot automate, I think, is the relationship between the publisher and the supervisors and the sync agencies, which I think it still has to be done by humans.
Yeah, but I worry. I mean, yeah, this is good that it can be done, but have we lost the heart of what, think of all the lovely programs you watch on, I don't know, Netflix or something. Like, I can't remember what it was when I got into Max Richter, that music with, I don't know, the one where they went everywhere. I can't remember. But there's like, like sometimes there are certain things where the music is everything. And one of the starters I work with, I won't say who they are, but it's about like finding what you're looking for, but maybe you don't quite know what you're looking for. So if we're working on prompts and filters and, this sort of mechanical, I call it mechanical, I'm biased maybe, way of doing it, where's the power of like where someone said, okay, I know you asked for a song for this thing that's got heavy metal, like, I know, like Slipknot in it, but actually, who's got the courage to say, don't laugh at me, I'm going to suggest to you this because you said you wanted this. Is that even possible? Because that's the value that publishers and supervisors, of course, I think, propose to, that is, to me, the value of doing more than that. Do you relate to that?
I do, but I kind of just if you did that to a supervisor that you didn't know, they're not going to speak to you ever again. So if you know them and you've got that relationship with them, you can say, I know you've asked for this, but actually, what about this? But actually, we have a lot of music. If you've got, I don't know how many songs you've got in your catalogue, it gives you the opportunity to be able to search through them and find the best candidates for what they're looking for.
Yeah, you can even find hidden gems in your catalog. Once you have tens of thousands of songs in your catalog, some may go unnoticed, or you may have forgotten about some songs that could be relevant to the opportunity. So again, it's a great tool that is available, that can be used, but it's not that it's going to replace humans and then it's going to automatically send and pitch songs to music supervisors. There's always going to be that human element that acts as a tastemaker, says, okay, well, I've gotten 12 matches for this sync brief, but I believe just these 2 or 3 songs could be a fit, and then maybe let me tweak the filters a little bit to see if I find other songs that could be a good fit. So it's not that just you get output and then you send it out, but obviously you have to work with it with a human.
I was just going to say, I think then that becomes an education piece for the user, and I think that there's a prompt versus context engineering kind of this sort of ethos that exists right now, and understanding the right way to elicit the response that you want, and about making sure that the responses you get are equitable across all artists, across all writers, across all mediums. It doesn't matter. You need to it has to be fair, and I think that's one of the key things that we have to be really careful of. And this is where utilizing kind of writers and artist names in prompts and things like that, it can get a bit kind of touchy with it. So but making sure that it is a clear and kind of equitable system is a responsibility, both sides, but also I think the technology companies and the technology providers have a responsibility to make sure that the music industry partners that they're using their platforms are educated on how to use that to generate fair responses.
Yeah, and being fair is also about being paid fairly for a sync. And there is someone here, I'm not going to plug him too much, but like his startup, which has one of the names of one of the Beatles in it, is about how much should you be paid for the sync. That's really quite like looking at other similar syncs that have been plugged into the system to have that knowledge and expertise, but it's a machine that has that expertise from experience, real experience, so that the value of it's helpful for everyone, I think, for the whole ecosystem. It can work both sides. I'm really a supporter of that because, if someone in one territory I work with has an opportunity for a sync and someone comes to them and, they say, want to pay you this, it's like, I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's money, but, is it already fair, or do you have to go on the premise that it will, what you ask, just take it?
So I've been working and kind of I invested in a startup that does this for a slightly different use case, a company called True Rights, and they did this for the creator economy and for creator and kind of a creator's IP specifically, and created a calculator that works out exactly what the value is based on the use case, the longevity, all of these different kind of aspects that would obviously impact kind of price point. But again, it has to be done equitably based on the whole industry across every different aspect of it. I don't think that it's a very complex calculation, but it's one I think that AI can definitely help with.
Yeah. I think, how long do we have left? I forgot to take my 5 minutes. Okay, so there's just two things. Contracts and publishing, I think that's something, I didn't put it in my list, so sorry to spring it, but I think it's quite interesting. AI, contracts, fair contracts for publishing. I thought that we completely missed that, but how many people have been ripped off because the contracts, and if it's fair, I think that's something that's changed in publishing, right?
So contracts more widely, and I assume that we're talking about the same kind of contracts here, just to be
Any
sure.
contract, actually, but publishing,
So I think that there's a way to be able to utilize AI to create contracts that are fair and equitable. The checking piece is obviously the same thing. I don't believe at this point that it is wise to go near anything AI from a final gate. That you want to get a lawyer, that someone that knows their stuff, a publisher, whoever that party might be, to genuinely check this stuff with your best interests at heart. I still believe that there is a place for humans in this chain, and this is one of them.
There is a time to save money and time not. So glad we got that warning. So I did promise, I don't know if anyone read my LinkedIn post, but I did say that there would be an opportunity in this panel to have a challenge with some really, like, think of a problem in publishing. I have one if no one else has an idea, but who has a problem in today's publishing that they want to pose to the panelists here to consider how that could be solved with publishing 2.0 in this AI world? Does anyone have anything that comes to mind? Otherwise, I'll think of one. No? Okay, good. Thank you. Maybe you could say your name and, what you do and,
Hi, I'm... whoa. I'm Joris.
Hello, whoa. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm Joris. I work for Digital Dreams, and I was just wondering, we've talked a lot about sort of streaming and how all of that can be automated, and I think there's huge opportunities there. But of course, there's also all these, there's live, and that's, what the GEMA does, essentially, here in Germany, and that just seems to be, to me, much harder to automate, and I was just wondering, like, this specific problem, how that can be tackled also from an AI perspective.
And what specific problem with live do you want?
Well, so specifically, if there's a song playing at a restaurant, then the restaurant still needs to be registered manually. All of this part, that still seems like a very, very manual and tedious process. Like the GEMA has to be at every single restaurant, every single bar to check for these kind of things. So that's basically the question.
Yeah, Mihai, you have an answer about this. I think we're bordering a bit on other sorts of rights, but that doesn't really matter. But yeah, if you can just pass the mic quickly to Mihai here, and then he might have an answer, and then the panelists, of course, as well.
The microphone is doomed today. GEMA has a solution for that, MRT, and they have launched it quite a while ago, and they monitor whatever is being played. Festivals, wherever clubs want to plug inside, bars, restaurants, what have you. Everyone who wants to use the sound mouse, the GEMA, they can reach out to them, and then that's their solution. It's not a bulletproof one. Nothing is bulletproof. It's just them showing, look, yeah, people are right. How do we get rid of all of this? Oh, the bar has to go to me, or the festival has to go to me. It's a step.
Yeah, that's automation, right?
It's still about adoption, because as much as every venue or every place that's playing music still have, that's why we have the pot of money that's done by licensing that then gets divided up by however they decide to. But if it's not in every supermarket or restaurant or even live venue, they're not all licensed either. So it's just it's difficult to get everybody to adopt it. I have a lot of live issues. We've talked about them at length.
Yeah, music recognition technology is quite, it's working really well in various areas of recorded music, but the key to live music, like a gig, like a concert, and that being recognized without what we go through now with set lists and, if it's indisputably recognized. Maybe one of you has an answer, like how can we, any ideas what could be improved in that way? Like live as in like gigs, like singing, not live in, Oh, no, I'm not looking at you just because of it. Like, if you want to answer it, but you don't have to, but,
Well, again, we've talked about this. My issue is one set list. I feel like that's for very, half the time nobody knows who's supposed to submit them. And then in my world, I think I should do, because I'm the source of truth. And then I get there and the PRO sort of done it themselves, and I'm not sure where they're getting their data from. Yeah. It's not MRT. And but there should be a way now, which I think there is, to be able to recognise what's being played, and then just.
He's getting
So this bit, I think, there are solutions being built, and there are solutions that have been built that will, ultimately listen for this sort of stuff. Is this on? It almost, for want of a better expression, will Shazam the whole thing, but also then use the visuals as cues as well. And I think it's about the more layers of data that you have to be able to individually recognize what is being played at what point, because there are different versions and kind of, there's different ways of performing different tracks that, will vary massively. I've seen Pink Floyd, I was lucky enough to have seen Pink Floyd play a few times, and they do change. And this is, I think, kind of it's an important factor that it's as long as the data and the DNA of that song stays the same, that you can track this stuff automatically, and that should then hopefully alleviate a lot of the manual, laborious chasing that has to happen. But again, I would still want it checked by a human.
Yeah, and what you said, Laura, is really hits home, because there's just too many ways of doing every single thing in publishing, and that's why even we don't know what to do. And it's also, when you're saying, imagine you've got the perfect set list, and then someone was at the gig on the stage and runs up to the person and says, give us your set list, and then someone, most people for their set list actually on tour, they don't write the exact title as it was written. There'll be the smiley song, which is the one where everyone laughs or whatever, because that's what it's called. But there is no song called the smiley song, because it's about doing it completely right. And we are going to talk about metadata in another panel that I'm moderating in an hour, so I don't want to get too much into the metadata side of it. But I think in publishing 2.0, I'm very much, and I wonder if you agree, I think it's amazing. I think we're in a really good time where innovation, using partners as add-ons, even, I like to think, even the majors, even the CMOs here, everyone is open because everyone's crying to be helped, right? So I feel hopeful about publishing 2.0, and I'm really glad to be a part of it in my day-to-day. I didn't bring the watch, so I don't know if we're supposed to finish now, but I think it's a good time to finish. Everyone must be getting hungry. I want to thank you all for attending and for being here, and I'll see you all later. And if you have any questions for anyone, please don't hesitate to ask us. And thank you, panelists.